One of the most important aspects to understand about WEGOWW2 is the zone of control. In this video, we'll look at zones of control, what they are, how they work, and explore the benefits they provide. What is a zone of control? Each ground unit exerts influence into the 6 hexes adjacent to the one it occupies. This area of influence is called the zone of control, or ZOC. The zone of control represents the real-life ability of ground combat units to respond to approaching enemy units with fire, maneuver, patrolling, etc. It also represents the delay involved when enemy forces make contact. It takes time for the enemy to deploy, evaluate the situation, and select a course of action. Zones of control can be displayed by pressing hotkey Z. Pressing it once will display the zones of control of the Axis ground units. Pressing it twice will display the zones of control of the Allies ground units. Pressing it a third time will toggle this display off. On the game map, zone of control values are displayed in a range of colors. Yellow indicates the lowest strength ZOC value of 1. Red indicates the highest strength ZOC value of 9 or more. Darkening shades of orange are used to indicate values in between. In other words, values that are greater than 1 and less than 9. Now, how do zones of control work? Let's take a look at an example. It costs movement points to enter an enemy zone of control. The zone of control for a hex is expressed as a value. This value is equal to the stacking size of all friendly units located in, or adjacent to, the hex in question. The hex content panel on the right side of the game screen has a button marked ZOC. The number on the left indicates the number of Axis stacking points influencing a hex. On the right is the number of Allies stacking points influencing a hex. Note, it does not cost anything to exit an enemy zone of control. Okay. Let's take a look at another example. Let's zero in on these 2 hexes. As we saw in the previous example, the stack of Russian units at the top has 4 stacking points. So, if they were alone on the map, they would exert a zone of control value of 4 in the 6 adjacent hexes. The single Russian battalion at the bottom, if alone, would exert a zone of control value of 2 in the 6 adjacent hexes. But they are not alone. Together, their zone of control values overlap in a single hex. Therefore, the cost to enter the hex that all units share is 4 plus 2. So, it would cost 6 movement points, plus the cost of terrain, to enter this hex. The cost of entering open steppe is 1.25 movement points. This makes a grand total of 7.25 movement points for an Axis unit to enter this hex. Are there any modifiers? The short answer is yes. Let's take a look at the details. The zone of control value is adjusted if one or more of the following conditions apply. Conscript ground units exert a zone of control value equal to their stacking size, -1. A conscript unit with a stacking size of 1 has no zone of control. Elite units exert a zone of control value equal to their stacking size, +1. Encircled and isolated units have their zones of control value reduced by 1. During night turns, the zone of control value is cut in half. Are there any exceptions to what we've just talked about? Yes. There are. There are hex sides and hexes that zones of control do not extend into. Here's a list. Hex sides include rivers, major rivers, unbreached minefields, anti-tank obstacles, escarpments, and cliffs. Hexes include marsh, flooded, swamp, the Volga River, sea, lake, mountain peaks, sand dunes, and prohibited terrain. Note: here are the exceptions to the exceptions. Zones of control do extend across hex sides that are crossed by intact bridges or pontoon bridges. Zones of control do extend into hexes along highways, roads, and tracks. To conclude, what are the benefits of zones of control? As seen in our examples, zones of control can slow or stop the advance of enemy forces. Because of the movement costs they generate, zones of control allow for the occupation and control of extended defensive frontages. The zones of control of units, positioned behind your defensive lines, can prevent, or mitigate the damage, caused by enemy armored breakthroughs. Zones of control can block, the retreats of enemy units. Zones of control can block, enemy lines of communication. And lastly, heavy anti-aircraft units, can provide adjacent friendly units, protection from enemy air bombardment. We'll expand on these ideas, in future videos. See you next time.